Hello and welcome to Headlines. The fate of the Gaza Strip and the question as to who will be exercising effective control over the territory are central to the future of what is to become a fully fledged sovereign Palestinian state. Hamas, which has been in charge of Gaza since 2007, is now claimed to have expressed willingness to relinquish control of the Gaza Strip to the Palestinian Authority as part of negotiations for a permanent ceasefire deal. Prime Minister Netanyahu has rejected the idea of power transfer of this kind, saying that he is committed to Donald Trump's plan for the creation of a different Gaza. The question is what kind of Gaza he is talking about and whether that Gaza will still be Palestinian or will have Palestinians as its residents. Joining me today are Marius Hirsch of Jerusalem Center for Security and Foreign Affairs. He is joining from Jerusalem. And Nizo Dahan from the organization known as Stand Up for Palestine, joining from Swansea, Wales, the United Kingdom. Welcome to both of you.
Hi, thanks for having us.
Thank you very much. Mr. Hirsch, allow me to be very clear. It's a formality, but still, I suppose, vital formality. The Gaza, in view of international law, is a Palestinian territory, and it's an occupied Palestinian territory despite Israeli disengagement since 2007. And Hamas is now claimed to have expressed its willingness to transfer power to Palestinian Authority. And Israel is saying that there will be no Palestinian Authority in Gaza. The critics of the Israeli government have been repeatedly saying that Israel does not give a straw about international law. What is your view on this subject?
Well, I think you have to take into account that that understanding of international law is baseless entirely. The entire area from the river to the sea was allocated by the international community in 1917, 1919, 1920 and 1922 for the creation of the Jewish homeland. The fact that the Egyptians invaded the Gaza Strip in 1948 did not make it Palestinian territory. When did it become exactly Palestinian territory? Was it Palestinian territory under Egyptian control from 1948 to 1967? Can you point to at least one, or even one, decision of the international community requiring Egypt to retreat from the occupied Palestinian territory during that period? Absolutely not. There isn't one. So that understanding saying, well, this is Palestinian territory, I would say that that is a misinterpretation of international law. It isn't based on anything. The Egyptians never laid claim to the Gaza Strip. It was never part of a state of Palestine at any previous stage in history. And that isn't its status today.
Nizo, what is your take on the future of the Palestinian state entailing two elements, West Bank and Gaza? Do you share the interpretation provided by Mr. Hirsch? And but ultimately, the most important question is, how seriously should we take this latest proposal reportedly emanating from Hamas about the power transfer?
Firstly, with regards to what Mr. Hirsch said, this is the same propaganda narrative that we've been hearing for a very long time. And it's very interesting that when people on the Palestinian side use the expression from the river to the sea, it's labeled as genocidal, it's labeled as criminal, and it's labeled as terrorism. However, the Israelis, when they use it, and they have used it for a very long time, as he clearly said, it's only a Jewish homeland and a land for the Jewish people. This shows exactly why these negotiations have never, ever achieved success, because Israel is intent on removing the original inhabitants of that land, the Palestinians, and taking over the whole area and the whole region. Now, when it comes to the takeover of Gaza, as I explained on your show, I think a few days ago, this is nothing more than a ludicrous proposal by somebody who doesn't know how to control what he says. And obviously Netanyahu has jumped up at the opportunity to put this in place, because from the very beginning of the Nakba and the occupation of Palestine, this has always been the intent, is to remove the Palestinians and to create a Jewish ethno-state purely for Jewish people. It's not going to happen. I mean, the Palestinians have endured genocide. I know Mr. Hirsch will probably disagree with that, so let's use the International Criminal Court's definition, plausible genocide. The rhetoric by Israeli officials has been genocidal completely from the outset. And now Netanyahu has seemed to found an opportunity for him to carry this out with the support of the President of the United States of America.
Mr. Hirsch, the latest talk about the transfer of power in Gaza emerged after Donald Trump's so-called ownership remarks, so Gaza takeover remarks. Prime Minister Netanyahu recently said that he and President Trump have a common strategy. There are some doubts about to what extent those people who will be moving or be relocated from Gaza, to what extent that process will be voluntary. There are big doubts about that, and it's almost certain that those relocated Palestinians will have no automatic right to return. Many would say that this looks like a recipe for Gaza without Palestinians. Do you think, in reality, genuinely, is this what Israel actually wants?
So I think you have to ask yourself, anyone who objects to President Trump's plan, what exactly is their agenda and how much do they actually care about the Gazans? So let's look at the situation. Prior to the October 7 genocidal attack by the Hamas terrorists in Gaza, the world claimed that Gaza was the biggest open-air prison. It was under siege. It suffered from unemployment, from a lack of electricity, from a lack of water, from a lack of access. They forgot entirely, of course, that it has a border with Egypt, but that wasn't necessary for the analysis. The idea was to blame Israel and Israel alone. In the October 7 massacre, the genocidal terrorists knocked out 9 of the 10 electricity lines that Israel was providing to Gaza. They now claim, there's UN reports that claim that 66% of all of the buildings in Gaza have been destroyed, 92% of all of the residential buildings. Another UN report said that it would take 21 years and cost $1.2 billion just to clear the rubble. A second UN report said it would take 14 years and $1.5 billion to clear all the unexploded ordinances. There are no shops, there are no supermarkets, there's no infrastructure, there's no water, there's no electricity in Gaza. And yet, now, even though everyone claims that most of these people are refugees, you have this voice that's saying President Trump is trying to do something which is unacceptable. Why can they not give the Gazan people a future that is worthwhile seeing? Why are they forcing these people to stay in an area which they claim is dangerous and destroyed and has no infrastructure, when you could simply let them out and give them a future, let the United States and the international community rebuild Gaza, and then allow those who want to come back to return in peace to come back? Those who say that the Gazans must stay there in the squalor, the demolition and the destruction, they are not humanitarians. They are not looking out for the rights of the Gazans. They are using the Gazans cynically as a means to attack the Jewish state. And yes, it is a Jewish state, but I have to just comment on one thing that Nizar really did say, which is completely erroneous. It's part of that general Palestinian lie that goes around. It isn't an ethno-single state. We have 2 million Israeli Arabs who live as part of the population, 20% of the population that live inside Israel. How many Jews live in Gaza? How many Jews lived in Gaza before the October 7 massacre? How many Jews live in Ramallah, in any of those areas controlled by the Palestinian Authority? The answer is none. And if you're looking for genocide, it is not in a population that grew all the time. It is in the wanton destruction, murder, rape that the Gazan terrorists carried out on the 7th of October, whether it be the Nukhba forces of Hamas or the civilians that joined them in that really folly of destruction and murder.
Nizar, what's the level of support for Hamas in Gaza today, you think? And to what extent you think that this proposal about Hamas offering this power transfer to Palestinian Authority should be taken into account seriously?
Let me just quickly respond to what
Sure.
Mr. Hirsch said. I mean, with somebody of his academic level. He seems very intellectual and very educated, but also he was raised in apartheid South Africa, and he was, the head of.
And my mother worked for Nelson Mandela. Would you like to get into that? Would you like to define what exactly apartheid is?
I let you
One
speak.
of us actually knows about it, so
match.
I would suggest that you not use the apartheid word.
This is what you Zionists always do. You don't let people speak. I didn't speak when you spoke, so give me the courtesy to speak.
I didn't get into your personal history at all. If you would like to get into my personal history, we can discuss my mother working with Nelson Mandela, my family being arrested for being activists against the apartheid regime.
This is the issue. Yes, and then you go when you inflict an apartheid regime on people, and the house that you built in Jerusalem in the West Bank was actually taken from Palestinians. No paper, no permits, no nothing. And
do the Arab Israelis not vote for the Knesset? Are there not 12 members of the Israeli Knesset that are Arabs? Is there not a Supreme Court judge?
People, is there? Okay, I'll let you speak.
Do you not know what apartheid is? How many black South Africans were on the Supreme Court of apartheid South Africa?
Don't change the subject.
How many of them could be elected to the parliament?
Don't change the subject.
You have no idea what apartheid is, so I suggest that you not use words that you don't understand.
Let's go back to the central subject of our discussion, with your permission, gentlemen. Yes, Niso, my question to you was about to what extent we could be absolutely confident that Hamas is genuinely interested in transferring power to Palestinian Authority, and what's a genuine degree of support enjoyed by Hamas in the Gaza Strip, and also if you would like to comment on the substantive issues entailed within Mr. Hirsch's comments about the situation there, please by all means. Thank you.
Look, I can't speak for the Palestinian people. I don't speak on behalf of other people. I don't like to portray my opinion as factual. Some of the things Mr. Hirsch said, for example, people are stopping the people of Gaza from leaving. That's not the case. The people of Gaza themselves, majority, do not want to leave, and they will not leave. They have said it themselves. They have come out on video. People that have lost family members, lost homes, lost businesses, lost livelihoods, lost everything. They said that this is our land, and no level of destruction, no level of massacre or genocide will push us away from our land. And this is what Israel fears. And this is why the narrative has to be pushed from a propaganda perspective that Gazans are not from Palestine and they're Egyptian and that they need to go out. And Donald Trump made it very clear. He said that they will not be allowed to return. And Netanyahu. So, they're trying to push this friendly agenda now to say that once everything is sorted and cleared and rebuilt and it's the Riviera of the Middle East, the Palestinians from Gaza can go back. That's not what they're planning. They are planning to ethnically cleanse that whole area and to take over the whole region. When it comes to the level of support for Hamas, that's, again, I can't really answer on that. But what I can say is that resistance groups do not emerge out of nothing. And Hamas was established in 1987, 40 years after the occupation of Palestine started. So when you have people that are starved, that are bombed, that are under siege, that have no resources, that Israel controls every aspect of what goes in and what goes out, then there will be resistance, just like there was Jewish resistance against the Nazis and there was black resistance against the KKK and all of these groups in America. Resistance is expected when you oppress people for so long. And in terms of having a border with Egypt, yes, they do have a border with Egypt, but Egypt is not the occupying force. Egypt is a neighboring country. Israel occupies Palestinian land. 50% or more of the people living in Gaza are from the kibbutz areas around that were occupied, and people were driven from their homes. So, to say that those people are Egyptian and that Gaza was never part of Palestine, it's not strange coming from somebody that is a settler himself and has taken Palestinian homes and evicted them to live there comfortably with his family.
Mr. Hirsch, would you agree with the assessment that all of the actions taken by the current Israeli government is very much aimed at ensuring that there will never be Palestinian state in Gaza, and everything will be done to ensure that two-state solution will never be implemented? Is it a genuine precept dominating Israeli mindset? And is it something you yourself are very open about?
So I would have to say that on October 6th, if you asked most of the Israeli population what would be the outcome of the discussions, I think that you would have found that there would have been a possibility to accept a Palestinian state, given the actions of October 7 and what has come in its aftermath. I think there is almost zero chance that the Israeli population, never mind the Israeli government, will accept the idea of another state to the west of the Jordan River. It will not happen. It was never meant to happen to start with. And now, given the extent of the threat, the extent of the brainwashing of the Palestinian population, the extent of the perpetuation of these constant lies and the rejectionism of the Palestinian leadership, there is zero chance that there will be established a Palestinian state. And I think that that's a reality that we must start getting used to. The Palestinian Authority will not be allowed back into the Gaza Strip. The Palestinian Authority is no different from Hamas. They are just as violent as Hamas. They are similarly committed to destroying Israel, and therefore they will have no further part in that discussion. And just to make clear what exactly Hamas suggested, that they suggested passing over the civilian control to the Palestinian Authority. They refused to give up on any of their weapons, and that's something which neither Israel nor the Israeli population will tolerate. Hamas will be destroyed, and they have to understand that.
Thank you very much. And is there anything you would like to say?
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to Hamas being destroyed, you have to look at the wider context of resistance. Now, the Palestinian resistance movement is not solely comprised of Hamas. You know, it's a resistance to a terrorist, illegal pariah state, which has no basis of existing on other people's land. I mean, that's where the issue is. And when you talk about the Israeli population and the government feeling threatened by people defending themselves, under all international law, the occupier has no right to self-defense. You're not defending yourself. You're continuing the program of the Nakba, of ethnic cleansing, and of colonialism. People coming from all over the world, from Europe and from America, claiming that their ancestors lived there 3,000 years ago, where they have no genetic link or no cultural link to the area. Let's be honest, it's white Europeans coming and taking land from the indigenous people who live there. The Palestinians are not going anywhere. There will be a Palestinian state, whether Mr. Hirsch, Netanyahu or Trump like it or not. And they have seen that even with the most sophisticated weapons and technology and the most barbaric assault and attack on civilian life and infrastructure, that the resilience of the Palestinians is very, very difficult to overcome. Whether you crush Hamas or the other groups, the Palestinian people themselves are the true resistance. The women and the children who've lost everything but are still going and sleeping on what used to be their homes, that is the resistance, and you cannot break their faith. And this is why Israel is so scared and trying to spend billions, millions of dollars on propaganda and on controlling what the media say and pushing the narrative that suits Israel, pushing this fake notion of anti-Semitism for anybody that opposes the apartheid terrorist state of Israel. Palestine's not going anywhere, and this is something I think that Israel have realized after 76 years, and now they're trying other avenues. It's not going to happen.
Maybe just as a closing word, Nizar could tell us some of those great Palestinian leaders before 1948. When exactly? Give us dates, Nizar. When did a Palestinian state ever exist? When the Palestinians talk about Jerusalem and they call it Bet el Maqdis, what exactly are they referring to? Are they referring to Bet HaMikdash, the Temple of Solomon, which there's a 1925 Supreme Muslim Council tourism booklet that was put out about the Temple Mount, which says it is unequivocally the site of the Temple of Solomon. 1,000 years of Jewish history in this place, recognized in the mandate for Palestine in 1922, that provided the legal basis for Israel, which recognized the historical connection of the Jewish people to this land. We haven't seen anything of that regarding the Palestinians, who didn't even exist to the extent that their brothers in Egypt or Jordan would bother to set them up a state between 1948 and 1967, when there was no occupation of those lands. But never mind, you can carry on with your narrative. A narrative, you just have to understand, it's just another word for a lie.
The truth hurts, my friend. The truth hurts. The Palestinian people, the direct descendants of Canaan and the Canaanites.
Well, gentlemen,
before Islam, they were Jewish. Before that, Go on.
Yeah, Nisa,
Oh,
if you,
yes, of
if you
course
want
they
to
are.
conclude. I mean, gentlemen, of course, there are two competing narratives, and our humble duty here is to organize a conversation about the current exigencies and practicable issues. I'm most grateful to both of you. I realize that there are fundamental differences, and those differences are there to stay. I'm most grateful to both of you for your time. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. This was Marius Hirsch from Jerusalem Center for Security and Foreign Affairs. He joined us from Jerusalem, and Nisa Dahan from Stand Up for Palestine organization, who joined from Swansea, Wales, the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. See you very soon.